Welcome, everybody, to another virtual event. And I'm so excited to be back once again with the Barker Adoption Foundation. They are family now. Let me tell you something. We've been chatting every month, and I am so excited about the work that they've done. And so, if you've tuned in before, this conversation is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. So, do me a favor if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, like and share it, like and share it with everybody you know, especially parents who you believe are having some issues with having children, or if you're considering adoption, or you just want to know a little bit more about it. Maybe you want to help in that arena, or just help spread the word. Do me a favor, like and share this video. It's going to be great content, great information for you to share. I feel like I'm going to shed a few tears today. I just feel like the stories that we're going to hear today are going to be, heartwarming, and just really talking about the success of adoption. And I thank God that adoption is an alternative. So let's go ahead and jump into our guest today. So our guest is Lisa Freeman, who's a native of Silver Spring, Maryland, currently serves as an executive director for on-campus living at Johns Hopkins University. She has worked in higher education for more than 20 years, and the range of her work includes leadership and policy development, student access and advocacy, risk and crisis and emergency management, strategic leadership, expanding student housing, and oversight of various capital projects. Now, Lisa has held adjunct faculty appointments at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and American University, teaching leadership and freshman seminar courses. Her passion for training and development has afforded her opportunities to facilitate workshops in organizational management, emotional intelligence, social justice, and diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. In her free time, Lisa enjoys international travel. Me too, Lisa. And has participated in immersive, educational focused trips to South Africa, Ecuador, and Guyana. Lisa adopted her son, Colby, in 2020, which was facilitated by the Barker Adoption Foundation. Her experience with adoption birthed in her a passion for raising awareness for adoption in communities of color and creating support circles for single individuals in their pursuit of adoption. Lisa has a Bachelor's of Arts in Radio, Television, Film from Clark Atlanta University. Me too. A completed, a completed dual degree master's program, earned a Master's of Arts in Christian Ministry with an emphasis in leadership and administration, and a master's in business management with honors from North Park University. Well versed, and she is an adoptive mom, and I am excited to have her with us today. Lisa Freeman, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's
You and
interesting.
I have a lot in common. We might need to connect because we got a lot in common here.
100%.
So welcome. Lara Jones is our other guest, adoption counselor and clinical support specialist. Lisa is the adoption counselor and clinical support specialist for Barker's domestic infant program. She supports and counsels expectant parents who are considering adoption, and also provides support to prospective families who are seeking to build their family by adoption. Laura has lived experience as an adopted person. She brings her experience, her passion, empathy, and notable clinical skills to her work, and is able to help families navigate complex decisions. Laura has worked in a variety of clinical settings prior to her work at Barker, including public and private sector populations. Now, Laura believes that the essence of family is love, acceptance, and understanding. And the key to a strong society is in building strong families. I must agree, Laura. I must agree.
Thank
And
you
of
for
course,
being here.
Sarah. Sarah is here, and she is the Barker Domestic Director. Now, she is, I don't have to go through her bio because you
Nope,
guys
we did.
know Sarah. You know exactly who she is and what she brings. And so I'm glad to have all three of these wonderful ladies. Now, Sarah, you know, when it's all the ladies in the building, I'm really excited about that girl power, right? So can't wait to continue to share. And I love how you said, Lisa, that adoption, making sure that we dispel this myth about adoption in the African American community, like normalizing this type of conversation. So this is a great time. It is the last few days of Black History Month. It is a great time to talk about adoption in our culture. So before we begin, I want to go to this video, share some things about Barker Adoption Foundation, and we'll come back and have a great conversation. All right?
Looking back when I started the adoption process, I knew I wanted to be a parent. I wanted to be there for someone. I knew also that I couldn't quite deal with an infant or a toddler, an older child, one who is no longer trick-or-treating but not yet driving. That was my target age range. That's where you fit in.
The Barker Adoption Foundation specializes in older child adoption from foster care, offering guidance every step of the way.
I wasn't sure what to expect when I started the adoption process, about how these couples want to adopt babies, get them while they're young, things like that. But my dad showed me that even teenagers also want it.
Throughout the entire process, Barker made this as simple as possible and memorable. And I didn't just gain a son, but I also gained a family.
Thousands of older children like Ramond are waiting for families to take the first step. Visit barkeradoptionfoundation.org and start your journey today.
All right. I love it. I love it. I love that video too because of the age the young man was when he was adopted. So we already had that conversation that it doesn't matter what age for you to adopt and to let the babies know or let the children know or young adults know that they are wanted. And I just think it's also is just a great conversation for us to have and share with our audience. Again, I see a few folk on and I want you to acknowledge yourself, like jump on and let me know who you are so we can love on you a little bit. And we want to jump right into this conversation. So let's start with Lisa. Lisa, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to the decision to adopt.
Sure. Well, I think I'll start with the latter. The decision was based in my mother's example. My mother was a DC public school counselor for many, many, many years. And she, back in that day, would bring home children for the weekend that were at risk. And it started to kind of expose us to family looking very different. I'm a twin. So I've always had somebody in the world with me, and I had two older brothers. But for the weekend, there was my cousin, it was my little brother, it was my sister. She just had this sense of extension in the lives of those that were in need. And so it started me early, thinking that as I got older, that one day I wanted to adopt. I didn't necessarily have the language at a young age, but I knew that I wanted to open my home up in the similar fashion that she did. So it was her example that really set me on the course to adopt.
That's awesome. You know what? Back in the day, we did have that sense of community because I remember my mom, my parents doing the same thing, right? And we lived in a home with my grandparents as well. And certainly, it was times that people was living with us or, we were supporting, for a number of years until they were able to get on their feet. It was a sense of community, I think, back then. So I love that. Now, how did you determine your level of openness as a single parent, wanting to get to the place of adoption? Because a lot of people who are of a certain age feel like, I may not ever be able to birth a child, but I do want a child. Right. Talk a little bit about it.
Well, let me first say, I didn't imagine adopting single. That just visually, I thought I would marry, have a few children, and then adopt. Mm-hmm. And, I'm an older parent, and I realized at some point in my life that my desires and dreams shouldn't be put on hold because of the script I had created in my head. And so when adoption became, when I was introduced to Barker and I went down the course of adoption, it was important for me to have that openness because my son is going to get older. And he will want and deserve to know his roots. And I never wanted to be in a situation where I wouldn't have the ability to give him or provide for him the access to understand more of where he came from. So the openness started immediately. Sure, I had some anxiety about what that meant, particularly in a day and age in social media and people find people in the most unique ways. But I always knew it was really more about him and me wanting to set him up to have the best possible outcome.
That is awesome. It's so awesome. So you came into a Barker Adoption Foundation, and what type of support, informal and formal, did you find most helpful in both before and after adopting?
Sure. I'm a relational person, so I needed access to people. And so the Barker Agency is really rooted in that community and connection and just being available and accessible. They are nurturing and empathetic, but they'll also give you the hard conversations. And I laugh when I say that I knew she was going to laugh, Sarah, because Sarah was like the sister that had to tell me to keep me corrected, to make sure I was focused on what the outcome was. And so having access to them was incredibly important to me, because adoption, you can do a lot. It's a lot of ways to adoption, but I know that I needed to have an agency that really was about people and was really invested in the relationships and developing that relationship. And I've continued to maintain that. It's been incredibly important to me to have that sense of community, and in a very genuine way. I've never felt like, okay, you've placed, now you move on. I've always felt like that access has been there, and it's been something I will forever be eternally grateful for.
Wonderful. When people talk about adoption, or even, wanting to adopt, the waiting period can be a little uh, frustrating. Waiting in general is a little frustrating. So let's talk about that. What was the waiting period like, and how was your transition to welcoming your child home?
Sure. Waiting is hard. But one thing I learned early on is that I had to continue with life. And when you read my bio, we talked about traveling. I'll never forget, I was actually in Thailand when I had a match. And it was one of those things where, sitting and waiting in a room was not going to do me any good. So I knew that I had to continue to, I had work, I have friends and family, and I love traveling. And so that helped. But your heart doesn't always know that, it's not, it's wanting something that it can't have right now. I've served in many leadership roles, and I've had kind of controls over things. And adoption is one of those things where you don't have the control that you'd like to have. And so it's a humbling experience. But going through that process, it was important for me to continue to live my life. And I was surrounded by my friends and family that were there to support me as I did wait. When I did get the call, it was almost like everything slowed down really really slow. And so there were some parts to me where I was like, I need more time. Even though I had been waiting, I was like, wait, I need more time. But that was not going to be an option. So it was a very interesting time, but it was one that I will redo over and over again for the son that I have. He has changed my life in ways that cannot be described. And so I also believe that the waiting period also helped me to get ready. You want to think that you're ready for everything, right? But when it's lights, camera, action, kind of like right now, what's going to happen when you hit the stage, so to speak. So that waiting period also was for me to get emotionally ready, for me to get psychologically ready, just to make sure that I'm really ready to not just be a parent, but to love this child in a way that they needed and deserved.
I love that. You're so right. But that's so like life, isn't it? Like, Lord, I can't wait till this happens. And then when it happens, like, okay, wait a minute, Lord, slow up a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Slow up a little bit. But that's so real. And even talking about the ups and downs emotions and the importance of having community, right? Having community help you walk out this process. So what did you do to attach and bond with your child after he came home? How old is he?
He is 4.5, going on 14. He is a very, very spiky. My mother used to always say, you're going to get back what you gave out. And if that has not been true, I'm getting back it every single day. Full of personality. The bonding process was an interesting one because I was so scared. New mom, every mom can attest to feeling that anxiety and that anxiousness. And, aside from me just staying up half the night, just looking at him, making sure he was breathing, Kobe came actually in a very interesting era. It was in the era of COVID. So I was working from home. I was working remote. And I obviously went out on maternity leave, but I had a unique situation in that I got a lot of time with him. I was here, my mother was here, and we just spent time. We went for walks. He loves outdoors. And so I didn't do anything different than any parent would do. This is not this, interesting child that now looks different and acts different, responds different. He is a little infant looking up to you, screaming and hollering, waiting for his diaper to be changed, wanting to be fed, So I spent that time doing what any mother would do. We read books. I sang to him. It was funny. He just pulled a book out that I used to read to him when he was like 9 or 10 months. It's What a Wonderful World was put into a book. And he could sing it with me now because he recalls it. So the bonding was really what any mother would do, any parent would do. Was just spending that time. And I was thankful a good came out of COVID that I was able to have that additional time with him.
COVID was a blessing and a curse in a sense, right? That you were forced to bond. And
Yeah.
so, that in essence, that was a perfect time for you to be able to bond, even on maternity leave, and even if you had to work from home. But now you had this time to really focus on your child, right? And you're right, they're infants. They don't know, right? They don't know. They just want to be loved. They want to be fed. They want to be clean. And
Absolutely.
so I get that. Now, is he connected to any of his birth family at this stage?
He's not. We started off with the adoption is still open. And that openness will always be available. Initially, I set up a site where I could share photos, and it was nice because his birth mother was able to see him as he was growing in those first few months, 6 months, all the way up to a year. And then we lost contact. And I understand in my own kind of education that that's sometimes what happens. And I think it's important to respect that, a birth mother may, be satisfied with the child is going to be okay. But I have made it in my point to create books and collection of photos. I ran out of actually storage space. I had to get some more of Kobe. So when and if that opportunity ever comes back, I want to make sure that I'm able to capture his life in a way that honors her and honors that family, because they certainly deserve that.
I think that's really brave. I mean, you have the option of whether, the birth mother has an option, whether it's a closed or open adoption. And I think you as his adoptive mother being open to, I was sharing with our audience before, adoption was an option for me when I didn't think I could conceive. And, we didn't have to get far before we were surprised 3 years after trying having a baby, and thank God for it. But I do have bonus kids, and I know the importance of, and we raised our bonus kids. Like when I married my husband, my oldest two, one was 2 and the other was 6, and we raised them from that age. But it was important to me that they also had connection with their birth mothers. And even though they were in our home and military, their mom was like, shipped off. And so I still wanted to be able to co-parent. I still wanted to be able to share. And that can be heart-wrenching a little bit because it's like, okay, you're still not the birth mother, right? But adoption is a little different in that you chose them, right? Like you choose, it's like Christ who chose us. It's like, the choice to love and to nurture and to build is just, it's an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing venture. And I love, again, how we're normalizing it in our community through the Barker Adoption Foundation, just really talking about it openly and sharing as much as we can, because to some families that might be taboo, but I think that having these conversations make it optional, right? And so I thank you for your story. Got a few more questions. How do you cultivate a spirit of openness in your home? You talked about, making sure that you can't force somebody to be a part of their life, but, as he's 4, does he know that he's adopted?
He doesn't. I went to, and actually will be going to this Saturday, the Barker Conference, and it's an annual conference. And, I sat in on a session last year and I listened to an adoptive adoptive child say that you really need to make sure that they are emotionally and mentally ready.
Right.
It's less about pulling a Band-Aid off. It's not meant to be in any way deception, but I want my son to be mentally and emotionally mature enough to understand that. The way I cultivate that openness is through, we read stories. Hoda Kotb has a wonderful book that I read, I Love You Since Forever. And that was our nightly read. And so, getting him to understand that adoption love is not biological solely, adoption is love. And I always will create an environment for him where he will not feel that sense of secondary or less than, but more so that he's enough. And while I did choose adoption, his birth mother chose me. And I think that is equally powerful. And it says something about what she wanted for his life. And I will make it a point every single day to do that and some, because he needs it and he deserves it. And so there will be a time where we will have that conversation. I've played it out in my head. And the wonderful thing that I do know about the Barker Agency is that they're a resource for me as well. I have family that have been adopted. My godbrother was adopted. And so there's a community, a village, I like to say, that I have access to that will help me with the words, provide him with support and understanding when that time comes. But I want to make sure that I do it in a way that shows he has the ability to process that. And I think right now it's just a little too early for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So, so what's one thing that surprised you about yourself in going through this adoption process?
That I did not have it together like I thought I did. And I mean that in a funny way. When you mentioned my bio, part of the work that I do in higher education and crisis management, I spent most of my life managing people's crisis. And not that adoption is a crisis. That's not what I'm saying. But when you have to kind of navigate the ebb and flow, the highs, the lows, I'm dealing with people's emotions and telling them how to manage them and giving them direction. Then when it came to me, it kind of like, it was a water well of, wait a minute, I'm not used to this. And so I had to really, really come to terms with leaning on people, asking for help, praying at night, God, help me get it right, because you're not going to always get it right. And then oftentimes seeing the uncertainty that lies ahead. So I don't have all the answers. And I used to think I did. And so God had a way of humbling me through adoption, that you don't have all the answers, but that's okay. So long as I do everything in my power to try to get the answer, lean and tap into the resources like the wonderful people at the Barker Agency, then I know everything's going to be all right. I felt like I was about to go to church right there for a moment. So,
oh no, girl, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. So let me tell you something. Welcome to motherhood.
Yes. I'm only 4 years
so
in.
Unpredictable. You sometimes feel so inadequate. And then you look up and you're more than enough. You know what I mean? Because you feel like, okay, I'm gonna go in. I don't care how much you prepare.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Not just the adoptive process, but welcome to motherhood. That's just what it is. That's just what it is.
Absolutely. And last night he went to sleep and he had a good day, but he just unprompted said, "Mommy, I love you." And that for me was what
right there is what you just
when you know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I'm doing something right. So I'm thankful that those little moments help to refill the cup so that we start over the next day and the next day and the next day.
Yeah. Hold on to that. Hold on. Because when they turn teenagers, honey, they go from mommy, I love you, to I can't stand you.
Leave me alone, right?
At least they may say it under their breath. All right. So what would you share with other families who are considering adoption?
That's a great question. You can do it. We need you. And I say we because I'm part of a community. When I went and I remember in the interest meeting info session, and they read some of the statistics on adoption, and the numbers were alarming for Black and brown children. There was no way in the world I was going to be talked out of doing it. So while adoption might be a path because of infertility or a path because of you want to just parent, just know that you can do it. And these children, those that have been birthed already and those that are going to come into this world, if you have a home and a beautiful heart, uh, please consider it, because it's something that's changed my life in ways that I never imagined. And I would do it 10 times over.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk with Laura. Thank you so much, Lisa. I
Thank
appreciate your
you so
story.
much.
I'm
Absolutely.
sure at the end I'll give you opportunity to share even more, give you
Sure.
final words and jump into the conversation wherever you see fit. All right, Miss Ray says, thank you for doing this. I've been hearing the commercials on Praise a lot lately. Awesome. I'm very interested but single. What is the process for a single person and the price? So that question is loaded. But I know that Laura's going to answer some of that, and Sarah will definitely answer that. They have an amazing information session that's coming up, a workshop that's coming up
Yeah,
that could
my
answer all of those questions for you. So we're
my
gonna we're
husband
gonna
answered
continue the
after that.
conversation, and we're going to make sure that that question is answered. So stay there and then tell somebody else to join us. All right, here we go. All right, so Laura, what is your role, at Barker, and how do you support families who are considering making an adoption plan?
So I am the adoption counselor, which means that I counsel expectant parents who are who want to consider how they can um, best support their child. In that counseling, we're talking about all parenting options, even themselves. What resources do they need if they want to parent? And then if the conclusion is in that conversation that they want to create an adoption plan, we talk about adoption, what it is, what the process is with Barker, and I support them in creating that plan. And then if they're ready, we do an intake and proceed from there. So that's a major part of my role. And I also get to support adoptive parents in their wait and preparation for a child.
Got you. So, what is a central theme that emerges for you in your counseling of expected parents? I'm sure the same question that our viewer just had, like, what's the process? What's the cost? I know it's all of those things that kind of like go into factor, but what seems to be a central theme that comes up when you're, counseling expectant parents?
In counseling expectant parents, I think the main theme is um, they want a choice. They want an option that they can feel confidence in. And sometimes in our conversation, the choice is, okay, well, I feel I can parent and I can move forward. And then sometimes the choice is, I want to create an adoption plan. But the main theme is they want a choice, and a choice that they feel is best for their child.
Hmm. Got you. Got you. So, not just saying, this is this one way. Well, it's a number of ways that we can get you to point B. It's a number of
Exactly.
ways that we can get there. And, just finding out that process. And as Lisa said, the waiting process has got to be gruesome. So people want answers. They want answers while they're waiting and while they're going through the process. What are expectant parents generally looking for when choosing a family, for their child?
Uh, I can speak to a number of intakes I've had where the focus is, I just want a family who will love my child,
Hmm.
which is kind of the dream that we think of in adoption, is that these expectant parents just want someone that will love them, and then they choose you and you get to love them. But that really is their biggest desire, is a family that will love and take care of that child. And that
Hmm.
ends up being their main priority. In choosing a family with that as their focus, um, I think often they then are able to find other things that are important as well, whether it's race, culture, language, that they find is important in a family that will parent their child.
Mhm. It's already an unnerved situation to realize I have to relinquish my child, but to
Mhm.
know, as Lisa says, the birth mother choosing you, or you know what I mean, and it's just got to be. I can't imagine a feeling even better than that. To know that not only are you choosing this child, but the mother is choosing you to raise this child. Like that. That to me is such a powerful statement. What makes Barker special in its work with expectant and birth parents?
There's a lot, I think. I think Barker's really special, but I'm obviously super biased. I work here. And
Mhm.
I get to work in adoption, which is the most beautiful work ever. But I
Mhm.
would say what makes Barker special is the number of resources and supports we have for these families, for these expectant parents. And also um, I can speak to my role specifically as a adoption counselor is we make ourselves available to these parents. If they need us, we're there. I had a recent placement where I was in the delivery room and she was in active labor, and we're there to support. And a big unique part, which I think we'll get the opportunity to discuss in a little bit, is we offer cradle care, which is
Mhm.
a home that we have licensed. We've licensed a family to watch over these infants during the period that these parents can decide if they want to parent. They can.
Mhm.
It's an opportunity. It's called revocation period, but it's a time where they get to decide if they feel that they want to parent or if they want to move forward with the plan. And
Mhm.
it's dependent on the state. But these cradle care homes are these warm and loving environments that these infants get to stay in while that period commences. I don't know what word I'm
Mhm.
looking for, but
Mhm. Got it. Got it. So cradle care again. Talk a little bit about this. Is a home that you have that will
yeah,
help.
so they're families that we've licensed. We have them in DC, Virginia, and Maryland.
Hmm.
And they're specifically licensed to just watch baby during the 30 days, 14 days, 7 to 10 days, depending on the state. Um, and I'm obsessed with these cradle care families. I'm just saying they are um, they are only there to love that infant during that time, but it's so much love and kindness and support. They often they get the opportunity to meet the birth parent. They'll come to the hospital during discharge, so they get the opportunity to meet birth parent and support in that. And then they work with the adoptive parents to visit during revocation and just have this warm environment for these parents to get to learn their new baby and experience their child for the first time.
Wow.
If
For
I
the
can
many
jump
months
in
that
a little bit there.
we what did you say, Sarah?
Oh, no, I wanted to jump in a little bit there because I know Lisa had a phenomenal relationship with her cradle care parent that, helped to support her little one, during mom's revocation period. And they really do stay a part of the child's life, even long after, that temporary phase where they are really parenting the child, during that revocation period. And I think, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, the parent that supported you, she was also a part. She came to the finalization, which was online, I think, to the finalization of the adoption, and so they are, really invested.
And I will say it's funny that you just mentioned her in indirectly. I just texted her 2 days ago a picture of Kobe. So she has been a part of my life, and I consider her family. We've met up, we've gone to lunch. It's amazing how Kobe, while I don't know that he can remember them, he was so comfortable with them.
Mhm.
And the one thing that I will say about the cradle care is, so my period was 30 days. They took pictures of him every single day. And so
Oh.
they stand in the gap. So that child is never absence of love, absence of care. I mean, her children I send the picture and then she sends it off in the group to the rest of the family. So he has no shortage of people that were there from day one. And really, in all honesty, will be there for him for a lifetime.
Wow. The many months that we've been talking about Barker Adoption Foundation, I never knew about Cradle Care, and this is phenomenal. Thank you, Laura. We needed you on
Amazing.
to talk about this. This is so good. Barker, I'm more and more in love with every single time we talk because I find out more information about Barker Adoption Foundation. From day one since Sarah and I met, I was like 2 feet in. I was like, I love this organization. Thank you for having me be a part of it. And the more I find out about it, the more I learn about it, the more we do these virtual events, the more I understand why it's so important to do this work, why it's so important to partner, and why it's so important to get this information out. Because adoption is not just what we see on TV. Like, it's not just, you being in the birthing room with the mother and then the baby is yours. You have to go through some processes, and Barker Adoption Foundation walks you through every single process. Every single process. And if you don't have an agency or an organization like this walking you through, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? These, these illegal adoptions, or, trying to cut the red tape. This is how you do it so that you're well-rounded in all areas, because it's out there, right? The fraudulence. And that's awful. That is awful when you have an organization like this that can walk you through from A to Z. A to Z. All right, tell us about an experience that stands out for you as an adoption counselor. You shared one or two, but give us one more, Lara.
Yeah, of course. So I'm adopted as well. I think that was in my bio.
We read that in the bio.
And I had never considered the experience that expectant parents have in relinquishing their child. It's not easy. It's so very difficult for different reasons and in different ways for these parents. But I have a specific experience where it was beautiful. I got a post-delivery referral a month ago, maybe. We might be nearly a month ago. And she had given birth and wanted to create an adoption plan for her child. I went to the hospital the next day, and the expectant parent only spoke Spanish, and they had a translator available at that hospital who supported me in providing counseling to this parent. We talked about adoption and what it looks like, and she was so emotional holding her infant the whole entire time. But as we talked about openness and being able to have that connection with her infant throughout his life, there was this calm that she seemed to feel and experience. And she decided to move forward with a plan, and we signed consents and paperwork, and she chose an adoptive family. And the family she chose shared both culture and language, which also was a part that seemed to bring her a lot of confidence and hope for her infant. And during revocation period, she asked for pictures that were provided through our cradle care. And I was able to pass on those pictures. But there was this connection that she had with her infant and then with the adoptive family that was so beautifully unique. The family that she chose, obviously they're all over the moon when they get that child, but the gratitude that they had for her as the expectant parent and the choice she made was stunning. And the gratitude she felt for them. Revocation period ended. Baby went home with this adoptive family, and they exchanged messages of gratitude to each other, the expectant parent and adoptive family. And it made me so excited and grateful for what that child's life is going to be and the opportunity he's going to have to know himself and to know truly who he is and the love that he is just surrounded by. But that's, yeah, I think that's been one of my favorite experiences so far.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
It was.
Sounds amazing. But it's God that will orchestrate something like that, right?
Yes,
Just that it's
both
so
families
perfect
expressed
in
it
the
as a
exchange and
miracle.
then how the baby is placed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, for expectant parents who's considering adoption, check out the number that's scrolling at the bottom for the expectant parent hotline, pregnancy hotline. If you are pregnant and you want to consider giving your baby for adoption or choosing your baby for adoption, I think is a better word. Um, Call the hotline. Call the hotline. You see how warm and sweet Lara is? She's going to be the example of who you're going to get on the other line to help walk you through this amazing process. All right, Sarah. All right, Sarah. I know Mary's in tears. That's beautiful. Thank you, Laura, for providing that support for that mother. It is so beautiful. It really is. All right. So what can adoptive families expect when working with Barker for an adoption? Because listen, I love this side of adoption because we've normally talked to the adopted kid, or
Yeah.
we've talked to people who have adopted, like Lisa has done. But to hear from a perspective of Laura, who has been adopted, and then how she has taking care of the expectant mothers or expectant parents is a whole different view. And I'm so glad you're sharing that with us today. But let's talk about it. What can adoptive families expect when working with Barker?
Well, for one, you have someone as warm and endearing as Lara. One of the greatest testaments that we have as an adoption agency is to have adopted persons on our staff feel very comfortable and confident and safe in the ethics and the practices of adoption that we are doing. So, not only do we have our adoption services on our website, but we actually truly live and believe and value each of the people that are represented within the adoption circle. So you have the child that is the most vulnerable in that sort of circle that we're representing and we're speaking for and advocating for. But we also are trying to support the expectant parents and make sure that they understand their rights. And none of that is violated, and they really do have choice and that self-determination in the matter. And then, of course, our adoptive families, such as Lisa, we want to make sure that they are also understanding the process. They are supported through the emotional ups and downs, right, of this process that you really have very little control over. Like, there are parts of it that you do have control over, which is the paperwork, getting your stuff done, scheduling with your social worker. You can control that aspect of it. But when it comes to the weight, you're really leaving it all, in God's hands, right? And whoever your whatever your belief system is, and higher power and all of that, like, you're really leaving that and letting that go. And so what families can really look forward to in working with Barker is having a community of people who really understand that and are going to walk alongside them with that and provide the services that are tailored for each family. Some are, very general services that we will provide, broadly for everyone. And then there are those that need, more hand holding, a more, one-on-one approach. We're here to provide that. The families that want a more hands-off approach, where we just, quickly send an update, something that's relevant, they can have that too. But all of the services are very supportive for each member of the circle, so that when everyone goes to sleep at night, everyone can feel proud of the work that they've done at this organization, and not feel that anyone's rights has been usurped. Did I
So
come
my screen is a little frozen. I'm sorry. I don't
Oh,
know what's going on with my Wi-Fi, but my screen is a little frozen. So I was like
you're okay.
trying to
Easy.
wait to see if you finished. Okay. Please forgive me. I don't know what's going on with the Wi-Fi and why it's a little choppy, but we're going to continue. Prayerfully, the information is getting out and it's clear to everyone. All right. How does Barker ensure a child-centered approach as well as ensure the birth parents' rights are upheld?
Yeah, so that really is central to everything that we do in our policies and procedures. We always want to make sure that we're looking at it from the perspective of the child. And that means that we are going to have, very, hard but compassionate conversations with adoptive families or prospective families to make sure that when you are applying, one, you're eligible for the program that you're applying to, but two, you're also understanding of the population that that particular program serves. So if it's the infant adoption program, which is what we're talking about today, if it's the infant adoption program, making sure that you're understanding of the realities of adoption within that program, what is common, right? When we're working with expectant parents who have experienced a crisis or unplanned pregnancy, what does that mean for you as the prospective family in terms of what you should be open to and being able to accommodate within your parenting experience? And so we provide information around what is normal, what do you need to understand about this process, and do you feel open to that? And if you don't, we have trainings to be able to educate and support and prepare families as so that everyone is coming into it from a very informed space. And I think that that specifically is creating a child-centered approach because families that are prepared are going to be a good parent, right? It's not saying that you're going to know everything immediately. It doesn't mean that you're going to be expert on day one, but it means that you have the tools, to actually walk that journey and succeed. And when you feel like you're stumbling or you're coming across challenges, you know where to turn to, you know where to go. We are very versed in the laws of our state as it relates to birth parents and what their rights are. And so we're making sure that we're also adequately counseling them on that. And so each adoption that goes through Barker is going to be one that has been steeped in ethics, care, and compassion. It's also legal, right? So we want to make sure that we are actually following the law. That is to ensure a secure adoption for everyone in the process. That's just as important as a part of that child's adoption story to make sure that we did our due diligence, making sure that that birth fathers were identified, that we made effort to find and involve and include them in the process. And if we're unsuccessful at that, there are still things, legal sufficiency having to be met, but we also help adoptive parents understand how to tell that story, right? In terms of, what the circumstances might have been surrounding their adoption. Not making anything up, we simply provide the information that we do have. All of that creates a child-centered approach and a scenario in which birth parents can be supported and have their rights preserved.
Got it. Got it. So I know that there is an event that's coming up, and we'll talk about that at the end because folk may want to come one-on-one to talk to some people, get all the information that they need. And you have an amazing event that's coming up that's going to address that. So let's go into this because diversity, equity, and inclusion seem to be the tag word today, right? When folk are getting rid of it for whatever reason, well, we know the reason, but it's important. So let's talk about how important is diversity and representation of Black families when recruiting the adoptive families.
It's absolutely important. Like
Absolutely.
Lisa said, it's not, we are not the ones in the majority who are adopting, right? So on some level, because of that disparity and that disproportionality, there is going to be a need for transracial adoption or for, children to be parented by families that don't look like them in order for children to have families, right? that is going to be necessary because of that disproportionality. And we do make sure that we train and support families in doing that. But if at all it is a situation that a birth parent can choose a family that looks like her and and her child, then we want to make sure that we make those opportunities available. And so what we do is try to build awareness around that, build awareness around the need for families, and not just just not just Black families, but really within multiple racial groups, like what Lara talked about. We just a month ago we were able to facilitate building a family that shared culture and language. That is such a huge part of identity, right? And just being able to have that sense of belonging. And so it really, really is important to us to make sure that we do have a diverse waiting pool that reflects the expectant parents that are within this community, within DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And just demographically, we serve about 50% of Black families. And so being able to have waiting families who are also Black, increasing that representation and opportunity for a parent to choose from within their ethnic community is really, really important. And it is something that parents ask for. Even if, sometimes we work with the expectant parents and we say, okay, who are you open to? And Laura's right. She said, anybody. I just want somebody who's going to love and care, and raise my child. But when we begin showing profile books, while they are open, and I believe that they are open to anyone, they do gravitate to families that look like them, right? Naturally. And so being able to have that option that's available is really meaningful for that family and overall for that child who grows up with those racial mirrors within the household. It's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard Laura when she was talking about the last story, it was important, like you said, for the birth mother to have to make sure that her child was ingrained in her culture, like being able to have, be able to, speak her language and learn the culture is important to some moms, to some families. And I can imagine, like I said, wanting to dispel this myth about adoption in the African American community, and having these children that need to be adopted, and then, families in our culture not understanding what this is all about. So this conversation is so needed, as we said at the top of the broadcast. It's so needed. It's
Yeah.
so needed. And it's so awesome to have faces like yours, Lisa, who says, you know what, this was an option for me. And it really is working. I love my son. I love that God has allowed me to raise this child. I mean, what a blessing that is. Like, what a blessing. So, how can families can continue to connect and learn about Barker, Sarah?
Well, coming up on Saturday, which we've talked about, we have our annual conference. So this is Barker's 80th year of existence. So we're
Wow.
celebrating our 80th anniversary this year, and this is our 31st conference. And so that's coming up on Saturday. It's at Shady Grove Universities, and we are going to be bringing out the entire adoption community. So there's going to be adoption professionals, adopted persons, adoptive parents. There's going to be birth parents, and everyone talking about their experience and their vantage point as you consider adoption and those touched by adoption. It's a really, really great space to learn and really just be flooded with all things adoption. It's a really loving environment. In addition to that, we also have monthly information meetings. So I saw a couple messages from Miss Ray in the chat. If you want to hear about adopting as a single person, well, one, you heard Lisa's story here, so that's one thing. But we have the process by which families can adopt. So knowing what steps you have to take in terms of the cost, in terms of how, what the process looks like through Barker, what are the services that we offer, how do I do it, what is my next step? We address all of those questions monthly in our free information meetings. There's also opportunity to have consultations with our program staff, just one-on-one. If if families had a more unique, situation that they wanted to explore, there are consultations that they can register for on the website. And so our website is scrolling across the bottom. It's www.barkeradoptionfoundation.org. All of these things that I've mentioned so far today can be found on our website. So all of the information, meetings, the conference, ways for expectant parents to connect with us, and ways for adoptive families or prospective families to connect with us is all on our website. But right now on the ticker, very easy.
So Saturday's event is a registered event, right? Where you get all of
Mhm.
this information that you need. Again, go to barkeradoptionfoundation.org, barkeradoptionfoundation.org. But as Sarah says, they do monthly have free events or free workshops that you can attend to get the ball rolling, to get things done. I know that one of our viewers, and of course, I want to pause to say if you have any questions or comments for any one of the ladies on our panel, you can certainly share those questions. We'll give you opportunity to do that before we end this broadcast. But if you have any questions or concerns, I pray that we've been able to meet the answers of our first question. But if you have any questions or concerns, go ahead, shoot us a question. We want to go ahead to address that. But I know a lot of people, I saw that our viewer asked about pricing, and a lot of people, that's kind of like a broad question because there is no like price tag per se of what it costs. But of course, there's some cost factors that come with it.
Yeah.
As a single parent, like you say, I mean, people are wondering about this economic state that we're in. What would you say to somebody who would ask, Sarah, what the cost looks like for adoption?
Yeah, absolutely. So the cost of adoption is not for the child, but rather the services that prepare you to be able to welcome that child into your family. And so because we have, lovely professionals, including Lara, that are offering her time, there are associated costs with each of those services. And so it can range from, depending on the agency, from about 25,000 overall to even 70,000. And I'm including uh, cost price points from across the United States, because there are opportunities for families to wait in surrounding states, not just Maryland, not just DC, not just Virginia. So it's a very broad range, and it encompasses a wide range of services. Some of those go directly toward the expectant parents, and some of those are specifically adoption specific services, like to get your home study, to do the application, to meet the counselors, to have your profile shown to expectant parents. So there are a series of things, your trainings, there are a series of things that, a lot of expert professionals are doing on behalf of the family. We do have our fee agreements that are visible on our website. And so, Barker practices transparency in every way. And so the fee agreements are on the website. It outlines the services that they cover. And there are no surprise fees. Everything that's on there is what is applicable to the process, and there's not going to be a single thing that a family pays for that is not already outlined in the fee agreement. And so anyone that is looking for that, it's on the website. There's a choosing a program page. There's also an apply now button. If you click the apply now button, it actually takes you to everything that you need to know about Barker's policies, the different programs that we offer, all of those fees, the process, everything is outlined there. So we want to be as transparent and as open as possible. And then if families have further questions, of course, we do have those information meetings and the consultations to delve even further.
Got it. BarkerAdoptionFoundation.org is where you can go to find all of that information. Sign up for the workshop that's happening over the weekend, any of the sessions that they have. The website is very informative. And truth be told, adoption or not, just having a baby is going to cost you some money that you can't really, you know what I mean? You can't literally do a litmus of, okay, prenatal, okay, you know what I mean? Preparing for the nursery. You can't. You don't have these line items when it comes to having children, and so it's pretty awesome that you could go to a barkeradoptionfoundation.org and then get a line item of some things that you need to prepare. So even after you have the child, I mean, babies are expensive. Let's just say that. Let's just, you know,
Okay.
it's just it's an expensive process. So birth, having your own children or adoption. So and if you can't have your own children, adoption certainly is an option. And I love that, Sarah, we've had people, young people on who've been adopted not just as infants, adopted as teenagers. We even had a preteen. We had a young adult who was adopted.
Yeah.
And I think that is awesome. The whole process of adoption, of wanting to raise and be a part of a family. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox and let you give final words. We're down to the wire. We're a little bit over, but of course, Sarah, I want you to give final words. Lisa, thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing. I pray that I'm able to see you again and we can talk again. And thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. I know we probably will see each other again and talk again. But Sarah, we'll give you opportunity to close out today.
Yeah, sure. This is something that I'm so deeply passionate about. We've spent, the last couple segments talking about older child adoption. And I know not everyone feels prepared or equipped to be able to adopt and welcome an older child into their home. And so we also wanted to, include the opportunity for those that really do want to start out with a baby, with an infant. And there are pathways for that, that we, are able to support here at Barker. We love working with our expectant parents and, counseling them through their options and, having them really settle on adoption as a choice. It is a positive parenting choice for the families. We truly value openness in adoption, whether it's an older child or an infant. And so being able to preserve those connections for children is something that we deeply value. So this work will continue to be super important. Being able to have members on our staff, such as Lara, who's adopted, allows us to also keep our eyes on: are we doing this the right way? Is there something that we're missing? Is there a blind spot that we have as an agency? And how do we ensure that we are truly upholding the values that we say that we are? And we get confirmation from them. Thanks, Laura. We get confirmation that that we really do value the child. And so anyone that is seeking adoption as a parenting option, whether you're the expectant parent wanting to make a plan or a prospective adoptive parent wanting to grow your family by adoption, we are here for you.
I love it. Thank you so very much. Guys, go onto the website, barkeradoptionfoundation.org. Thank you. The Voices of Adoption today has been amazing. Again, thank you, Lisa, for your story. Thank you, Laura, for your service and for all that you've shared. And Sarah, thank you for even giving us the opportunity to share it on our platform. Everybody like, share, and tell everybody about this great conversation. That's going to do it for us today. Have an amazing day.
Thank you.